other.
Hello, everyone. This is Tikva again from Homeopathy for Humanity. Thank you for joining us on our Thursday night learning session, where we will be reviewing Aphorism 17 in the 6th edition of the Organon.
Okay.
Sandra, welcome the people.
Hello everyone.
Hello
today
everyone.
we- We have new friends, our other team from Nasik, and we're still waiting for some more people also. Hope they will join soon.
And we've
And
got
I am
Dr. Siva
Dr.
Karan.
Good evening, all. Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, sir.
And Shiv Kumaran is from Chennai, right?
Madurai, sir. Madurai.
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 Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Today we are here to talk about aphorism number 17 of 6th Organon.
Yeah.
And this part is again we are talking about how the vital force produce its action in the body, like that. We can continue, Tikva.
Yep, this
Screen
is a
share.
really fun one because the if you just read the aphorism alone, that's interesting enough. But the footnotes, that's where it gets really fun. Hahnemann is actually a very, very interesting writer with very strong opinions. And he also goes off into very long rants where he's upset about things and the way things are in medicine and the way people behave. And he's a very bold person. It's very fun. It's very, very fun. Okay, so we have I took the things from the screen share. Open this from the desktop. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
It's hidden that behind that black videos. Okay.
How's that?
Yeah, okay.
So it goes to say that now, as in the cure effected by the removal of the whole of the perceptible signs and symptoms of the disease, the internal alteration of the vital principle to which the disease is due, consequently, the whole of the disease is at the same time removed. Okay, so when we've used the medicine, if it's the correct medicine, then we will and the internal changes that
Can
happen
you
with
repeat?
dynamic energy.
Can you repeat again? Because there was a big pause in between.
A big pause where?
When you started to explain. Hello?
Was my video malfunctioning? Yes, it's saying my
Video and
internet.
audio.
Oh,
Ah,
it's my internet. Okay. Sorry, guys.
okay.
Okay.
Just repeat again.
Okay, now as the cure effected by the removal of the whole of the perceptible signs and symptoms of the disease, the internal alteration of the vital principle to which the disease is due, consequently, the whole of the disease is at the same time removed. it follows that the physician has only to remove the whole of the symptoms in order at the same time to abrogate and annihilate the internal change. That is to say, the morbid derangement of the vital force. Consequently, the totality of the disease itself. Okay, so that very long sentence means that when the signs of symptoms of the disease that are caused by the vital force, because it's the vital force that makes the signs and symptoms happen. And then as homeopaths, we can read the signs of symptoms and make sure to give the best matching remedy. We want to use the remedy that matches the signs and symptoms of the disease state as close as possible. And so it's saying that when the signs and symptoms are gone, that the disease is gone. And so he uses a lot of very big words like morbid derangement, annihilate. Annihilate means to kill. So that anything that we can perceive and whatever a person can tell us, when those things are gone and they're better, the disease is gone. This is going to get really interesting at the footnotes, and we're going to come to the early, easier English as well.
And one more thing is that whole of the perceptible signs and symptoms, perceptible signs and symptoms. That is a more important one. You cannot just
Yeah.
interpret whatever is sense, whatever is perceived or experienced. Only those signs and symptoms can be taken or considered during case taking.
Yeah, it has to be concrete. Everything that we're
Perceptible
using.
to whom, sir? Perceptible to whom? Perceptible to patient or perceptible to homeopath?
Both.
Exactly.
Both, yes. Yeah, so if the person says, oh, my headache's better, thank you so much, that means that that's better. But if it's something that we notice a change, like if the skin is less yellow, or if they stop having dark circles underneath the eyes, for example, that's something that maybe we'll notice that the patient might not think to tell us. So it's both. It's both objective phenomena and subjective phenomena. Okay.
If we
Oh.
remove signs and symptoms, patient get cured completely. And that is removal of signs and symptoms gives cure.
Yes,
Is it possible?
exactly.
Is it possible if we remove the symptoms through dissimilar medicines or only with the similar medicine?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that you can have a case of palliation, a situation where there's palliation. But, Hahnemann's giving us the principles here for, us doing our job correctly, not the little accidents that happen, while we're treating somebody, because, these things happen. But he's basically saying, we're going to get to this. But when the disease is annihilated, that means when it has been killed, gotten rid of,
Removed.
the health is restored. And this is the highest, the sole aim
I
of
did.
the physician who knows the true object of his mission, which consists not in learned sounding prating, but in giving aid to the sick. So here, this is another place where Hahnemann is giving his opinion very strongly, that physicians have to be very practical and not just use fancy words for their patients. Okay, so then here's our summary of that. The homeopath needs to remove the signs and symptoms of disease. The whole disease is removed when the symptoms are gone. Now, this is expanded on in the chronic diseases. So do keep that in mind, because sometimes we'll have disease go latent, but then we haven't really given enough treatment and there can be a relapse. So this is the, we have to keep the chronic diseases, that book in mind as well. But basically, when the homeopath removes the signs and symptoms, the disease is gone. Extinguish the signs and symptoms, and the disease is extinguished. To extinguish is to put out. So, when we apply a dynamic range medicine against a dynamic disease, which the body responds dynamically with signs and symptoms. So, yeah, this is all about the dynamics. We use the dynamic medicine against the dynamic symptoms, and then that is dynamically removed from the person.
So only by using homeopathic way, removal of signs and symptoms by homeopathic way, only we can able to remove the disease.
Yeah, unless
Yeah.
it's just, a self-limiting acute kind of thing. That people.
So
can get well on
non-homeopathic
their
use of
Especially the word eradication is there.
eradication.
Yeah, eradication is into its whole name.
Ma'am, kindly correlate this aphorism with the 8th aphorism.
I didn't quite catch that.
Can you repeat, Shivkumar?
Sir, there is a correlation between this aphorism and the 8th aphorism, sir.
8 aphorism and
Aphorism number
one?
8.
aphorism number 8 and which are another?
This 17th aphorism.
Yeah, because in the
Oh.
8th aphorism, it says that it's by experience that the removal of the symptoms and the entire collection of perceptible phenomena, that nothing else should be there but health. I think it's the same thing. Just said in a slightly different way.
Here in this aphorism, the main content, whatever Hanuman saying is that it's about dynamic. He's saying that everything what is perceptible means whatever vital force, it can only we see the disease. We can only see the disease, internal disease in the form of signs and symptoms only.
Yes.
And there is no other way. And signs and symptoms will represent the disease. So whenever you are removing these signs and symptoms, itself will remove the seeds. So as how the signs and symptoms produced by vital force, that need to understand very carefully how these signs symptoms produce, because the level of vital force, how much strength, energy it has to, it gives certain signs and symptoms. It can be healthy, it can be abnormal. It has to give certain signs and symptoms. How much level it has, that way the whole body will function. Whole body will sense in the form of function and sensation. So, if the vital force is not optimal, it will change everything, every sensation of the body, and here Hanuman talks about whatever is perceptible by the patient.
Yes, sir.
Perceptible
Please
signs
elaborate
and symptoms.
perceptible, sir.
And
Please
this
elaborate it, sir. Perceptible word.
perceptible means whatever is experienced and in the form of senses, or whatever is
Okay.
what is the right
Experienced by
Marathi?
the patient.
Experienced by the patient.
Okay. Okay.
Perceive.
Yeah.
Huh? And how they will perceive by sensation
Okay, okay.
and awareness of the functions of the body. If he is aware of his internal movements of intestine, if he aware of his respiration, if he aware of his heartbeat, if you are aware of
Yeah.
the crackling in the joints, if you are
Sensations
aware
and
of
functions, yes.
all this, whatever is perceived or perceived by his senses, he will reveal, and those symptoms will represent health as well as disease. And only the mean of disease is signs and symptoms. If you remove those, that will itself will remove the disease.
Yeah.
And if signs and symptoms are gone, and that will we can call it as a cure. So
Yes.
there is no other mean we can explain, and this is only the way we have to follow. And again he reminds us about aphorism 1, aim, our mission. Our mission is to only treat the patient, treat the sick,
Restore the health to sick.
restore the health. Means whatever health was deranged or
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was to bring back to the health.
Previous healthy condition of the patient should be restored.
Right. Tiko, yourself?
You mean continue reading?
Yeah. If you have anything else to read.
Well, there's a lot more to read. But no, you went through that nicely. Okay, footnote. Footnote number 1. A warning dream, a superstitious fancy, or a solemn prediction that death would occur at a certain day or at a certain hour has not
British
unfrequently
homeopathic.
produced all the signs of commencing and increasing disease, of approaching death, and death itself at the hour and hour, which could not happen without the simultaneous production of the inward change corresponding to the state observed internally. And hence, in such cases, all the morbid signs and symptoms indicative of approaching death have frequently been dissipated by an identical cause, by some cunning deception or persuasion.
1 minute, 1 minute. आपटे सरांना माईक ऑफ करायला सांगा ना कोणीतरी.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Okay, Tiko.
Okay, so he's saying here that superstition, a bad dream, or a prediction. Let's say somebody goes to the astrologer and the astrologer has bad news for them. They might take that inside themselves and produce symptoms just as much as real disease. Okay, but he says here that it can be dissipated, it can be stopped by an identical cause, by some cunning deception or persuasion. Let's say, for example, that somebody is in the village and there is somebody that is around them that has had a lot of bad things happen to them. What would we call that in Hindi? You know, like a cursed person, and then they're scared to be around.
Misfortune.
No, like a person who is like, you know, has had many misfortunes. People tend to avoid them. I'm just trying to give examples, but anyway, I'll just finish this.
Okay.
And we can try.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Okay, dissipated by an identical cause, by some cunning deception or persuasion to a belief in the contrary, and health suddenly restored, which could not have happened without the removal by means of this mortal remedy, not dynamic remedy, mortal remedy, that means performed by people, of the internal and external morbid change that threaten death. Now we're going to say that in really simpler English because we need to, right? Fears and worries of a supernatural or superstitious type can be removed by tricking the person in a similar manner.
Similar manner.
Psychic causes of disease cause inward physical change as well as natural disease. Persuasion to the contrary removes the illness that threatens death. So let's have some examples. If somebody is very, very, what's the word again? Worried about, superstitious beliefs and things like that. Sometimes they will become sick without an actual cause, without any germs or without anything happening to the vital force, because their thoughts and their fear themselves can cause disease and can even kill.
Mental, emotional things, you can say.
Let's say somebody goes to the doctor because they have a concern. Let's say the doctor, this happens like a lot with mammograms. Let's say the doctor runs tests and the tests the examinations don't look too good. And the person doesn't really have symptoms. But just by giving that diagnosis, that unpleasant diagnosis, it can make somebody sicker than they would be.
Exactly.
And this happens a lot.
We can say we can say a thing like that. If somebody is not having any symptoms so far, and when accidentally he go for some test like say you can cholesterol or anything like that, and they notice that he has a lots and lots of amount of cholesterol in his blood, like say 500, more than 500, and doctor say how means how why are not doing something, it is too high, like that. And after noticing or after being aware of that internal things, he may start experience the effects. Probably with those all those changes, their symptoms and signs were she was not experiencing. But after being aware of, you can say, he may experience the things like that. But here, whatever he is saying, somebody is having fear, long fear or worry, that can change internally and give a physical symptoms also, a real symptoms, a real presentation.
Yeah.
And here Hahnemann is saying such symptoms can be removed with similar manner. What is a similar manner, Tikwa?
That's where things get creative. Similar manner will be different as for the culture. Whatever is culturally appropriate will be the best way to respond. So like, if somebody is having, worries that they'd had some kind of supernatural things, I might suggest, various things that are part of our tradition to help counteract that. And you'd want to do the same thing in your own culture. You know, different ways, like, you know, if somebody's worried about ghosts, you know what ghosts are? You know, ooh, those dead spirits in the night, and they think that something has happened to them from from a ghost. Then, you know, there are various traditional beliefs, like putting salt in the corners of the room, which can, and you know, these things are different as per cultural needs, but you really can help people feel a lot more in control of their lives, and you can help them feel a lot less threatened, and give support by, you know, making it so that, you know, you could say you consulted,
Consolation?
not consolation. You know, you need to bring up the higher authority, right? Let's say, you know, you're going to talk to a pundit, and the pundit, you say, okay, you've got a nervous relative who's worried that they're going to die because they had a dream. And 3 times in a row, they've had this dream, for example. So you could theoretically say, I'm going to contact a pundit or whatever, imam, whatever culturally is appropriate, and talk to them and see what you should do. And then you could come back with that advice and give that advice. What Hanuman is just saying here is fight the situation with a similar situation. So if somebody has had some kind of warning dream, is afraid of the supernatural, or is having superstition problems, all you need to do is like consult with somebody else that can tell you, as the homeopath, how to proceed spiritually to counteract this. Whether or not it's real is another matter. And then we get to the next footnote, and then we can go back to it all. It is only thus that God, the preserver of mankind, could reveal his wisdom and goodness in reference to the cure of the disease to which man is liable here below, by showing to the physician what he had to remove in disease in order to annihilate them and thus reestablish health. But what would he think? What would we think of his wisdom and goodness if he had shrouded in mysterious obscurity that which was to be cured in disease, as is asserted by the dominant school of medicine, which affects to possess a supernatural insight into the nature of things, and shut it up in the hidden exterior, and thus render it impossible for man to know the malady accurately, consequently impossible for him to cure. Okay, so God revealed to us everything we know to remove disease and reestablish health. Nothing is hidden. That's basically what the above situation says. That, you know, there's no reason to think that God has not given us the information that we need to cure disease, because he has. We have gotten the information. We just need to follow the directions. And sometimes the directions are to give psychological tactics to trick the patient. Sanjay, can you explain what you understood of that?
It's difficult language. Make
It's
it
okay.
little bit, make it little bit more
Easier.
simple.
Simple to understand.
That you can go scroll little bit below.
Yeah, so God gives us the information that we need because the vital force gives us signs and symptoms. And when those signs and symptoms are gone, the person is well. But then there is the disease that happens through supernatural worries or through superstitious worries. Just simple,
Superstition, supernatural, or fear, whatever.
yeah, I mean, there's a big thing that when people get a diagnosis, they totally curse because they're then expecting that they have something terrible wrong with them and that they're in danger. Even if they had no symptoms before, they still, it's like the diagnosis clicks in, sticks, and they're like, whoa, we're in trouble now.
Can you just mute all?
Can't use mute all and screen share at the same time. He's saying to trick people in a different superstitious way. To give them, what would you call these things in Hindi?
What is called means I didn't understand the right word. Anybody? Can you just mute everyone?
I told you I have to remove my screen share in order to do that.
Okay.
Who is the Redmi? Redmi is.
Oh, and then that's very confusing. Share. Okay. We got them. Here's my, that's still paused. So yeah, what you want to do is you want to use whatever is culturally appropriate in order to change the person's mind. That makes sense? I know that this does not come along with medical training. Your BHMS course has not given this information. I realize that. This might sound really weird, but it really can work. I remember mentoring a case where there was kidney failure. And the family, this is somewhere in Asia, not my part of Asia, a different part of Asia. The family was certain that the problem was ghosts in the house. And they kept saying to the patient while they were receiving treatment that the ghosts are stopping your treatment from being successful. So the patient was not getting well.
Mhm.
So we have to pull out other information that's culturally appropriate. For example, in my culture, the color blue helps ward off evil. Salt helps ward off evil. What about your culture, Sanjay? What would you do?
You can consider like someone is having belief that he like astrologer. Astrologer thinks that his house is not facing in the right way, and that's why the family is facing something else, and so someone comes and guide him, okay, do these changes,
Yep.
and he try to make the changes, and psychological he may feel that there is something change inside, or whatever physical symptoms he may have can be felt a relief, something like that. And even in such a sense, people may die in worries or those stress, and even we see the actual disease stays inside the body.
Mhm.
A material disease also been seen, not it's just imaginary symptoms, but there are real symptoms and signs that can be felt. With this all supernatural or superstitions or fears and worry.
Yeah, this happens to women a lot when they go for routine mammograms. You know, because oftentimes people have tiny tumors in their body that the body is actually working on cleaning up, taking away, that don't amount to anything. But with routine screening for disease, disease can be found when it hasn't made a person sick yet. And so that fear that can happen when people have a threat to their well-being can make somebody sick to the point where they're very, very sick. So Hahnemann says to use something similar to try to get rid of it. So if somebody has a problem that, you know, they walked by somebody that was spiritually unclean, and if they're having,
Or is it like that you can work according to his psychological things, according to his beliefs?
yeah, you have to use the person's beliefs. Like, let's say I come to India and I eat food that isn't from a Brahmin. Is that going to bother me? Or do I need a Brahmin to make my food?
It depends. How is your belief?
Right. See, I don't care if you make me food. You're not a Brahmin, and I'm okay with that. But somebody else might not be okay that the Brahmin touched the food, that a non-Brahmin, somebody, a Sudra, touched the food. They might not be okay with that. So you have to use cultural relevance.
Yeah. You can say traditional prejudices.
Not necessarily, because this is something that, you know, these rubrics were, you know, I think that one is by, what's his name? That German, the guy who did the plastic medicine. Who was the author of plastic medicine? You remember? I can't remember his name.
This is something related to your belief system.
Yes, symptoms that are related to the belief system. So what,
Simple thing, I think, whatever I understand, whatever the person believes, whatever his beliefs, we need to work accordingly.
Yeah,
If he
strong belief
believes,
system.
yeah. So if he starts believing being well, then he will be fine. If he start feeling that he is sick, then he will experience the symptoms.
That's why delusion chapter is there, no?
Or
not necessarily.
no, not necessary.
Not necessarily, because this can really literally happen to anybody who needs any medicine. It just really depends. Because you're saying to use actually trying to bring in a higher authority. See, deception or persuasion. So when people have a thought that they were around a cursed person and then they had a bad dream, then they had the bad dream a couple of times, then they can start developing symptoms that something bad is going to happen. So if you can find a way to say, oh no, I have this book. Let me consult this reputable book on spirituality and come up with something that makes sense and say what we would do in such a situation would be to go around the house and paint all the doors blue. That way, the evil can't come into the house and make you sick. It's all going to stop. And people will actually get better if you can do that well enough.
Okay.
Like, that thread that you wear around your waist.
Or around this,
Yeah,
many people.
right. If something happens to that thread, what's going to happen? How are they going to feel? Is there anybody that will be nervous that something happened to that thread?
Mhm.
You'd want to replace it with a better thread. That'll overcome. Or if somebody doesn't have one of those strings, you might say, wear this. It will protect you. Whatever's culturally appropriate.
Okay.
And then, of course, Hahnemann goes on to reiterate that everything that actually is disease in people will be seen by signs and symptoms, which we can treat. But in these cases where there has been some kind of other situation, you can simply try to overcome that using culturally appropriate methods. This can fall under, spiritual healing, let's say somebody goes to one of those big events where there's a guru and the guru says various things and then the person gets well. It can happen. So Hanuman's just putting that out there for us that we can use these tools as well.
Means according to the beliefs, along with the medicine, we can try to trick his mentality or emotional things. Whatever helps. Okay?
Which is a very interesting aphorism.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a couple of questions
Any
here.
questions?
Yeah, there's 2 chat questions.
Hello, Javera.
Yep, Devera gave us
Hello.
grace.
No, I was laughing what you said earlier,
Which part?
that if you went to India and if you ate the food without the Brahmin
Brahmin.
checking it, yeah. But you could say it the other way around. If Sanjay comes to Israel and he doesn't eat kosher food, would it bother him?
No, no.
I'm just trying to come up with any situation. 'Cause
Right.
there's a lot of people, if they're Brahmins, they only want to eat Brahmin food.
Right.
You know, they really do.
Yeah, we have that too. So I could understand that.
Yes, I'm just trying to make it culturally relevant, reading the
Right.
room. You know what I mean?
Right.
Okay, any questions, Anand sir?
No, sir. Hello.
Sarang Joshi?
Sir, there is a one term, supernatural things, which is mentioned in the aphorism.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is like that black magic or witchcraft.
Anything, whatever he believes. If the things making him sick, you can work accordingly, according to
But,
his
sir,
beliefs.
Yeah, so
Okay,
if
but the-
somebody's
Can
If
it be a
somebody-
blind faith?
You can consider, see, blind faith is for us, a third person from outside. But for him, he doesn't think that is a blind.
Yeah.
It's his own belief.
Yeah, so if somebody gets sick from black magic, you pull a bigger black magic on them that can make them well. You need stronger magic. If somebody's susceptible that way and they get sick that way with black magic, if they think they get sick with black magic, you need to find out a better black magic in order to help them.
I think assurance of homeopathy, it's a good one.
Yeah, that is the restoration, no?
Yes. Whether
But
this type
we
of
need to convince the patient, whatever his beliefs are. If he is not having a strong belief in something else, whatever we are telling, then he might not feel that well convinced.
whether these persons are like uh, easily magnetized type.
Maybe, maybe not. But the basic crux of the matter
Exactly.
is, if somebody has gotten ill due to superstitious belief, we need to get a bigger, more powerful, superstitious belief to give to that person to extinguish the current superstitious belief. It's
In
the
the
same-
simple way, we can say, whatever the person is having belief, we need to help things according to his belief, not with our whatever we believe. If he believes there is a God, then you to say, yes, there is a God. Even if you are not having belief in the God. So that way it helps the things to correct him internally. Even medicine also work well and faster.
So the medicine is to be given for the belief of that person.
Medicine for belief.
Medicine is to be given for the belief
Uh-huh.
that person has developed.
Ah. How do you know the person has developed belief? And how
He
these
tell us, no,
things
sir.
will develop?
It
No, no,
He
no.
it
will
is
tell
a,
us,
See,
no, sir.
it is
these
altered
are
state of
the
mind, na? It is a altered state of mind, na?
no, somebody is having belief that he is what do we say? Somebody is having some supranational thing, like he has been what do you say? There is
Black magic
something
or
ghost,
witchcraft.
black magic, like that, and you cannot give only medicine and make him cure. You need to treat him internally with his own belief also.
Get stronger black magic.
Unless and until he believes that this medicine works on me, the medicine will not work, because he internally made his mentality that stronger. The hormonal play or hormonal orchestra work according to his senses and beliefs and thoughts. So things go round and round like that. And how do we know that something is changed? It's all everything, whatever the thought, we need to understand that how we are grown up, how we are educated, how much we are educated, in what surrounding we are living in. Everything affects our thought system. So huh?
So uh,
Huh?
relation between the OCD or schizophrenia, these are the, मतलब they have in a system ki there is someone is behind the following or sometimes fears, like a
There
super
are
species.
no, those are actually
Mental.
purely psychological, psychic diseases. In
Yeah.
that, the person is not having a control over his mental and emotional state.
That requires antisporic remedies and other remedies and a lot of remedies. It requires a lot of medicine for that kind of thing.
In this aphorism,
Hey,
we need to keep in mind, if somebody is having some belief of supernatural things or something religious thing, yeah, like that. So you cannot make him like, suppose somebody is having belief that he is vegetarian, and how will you feed him a non-vegetarian food and try to make him cure? He will become more and more sick with that thoughts and ideas. But if you convince him, yes, this is a vegetarian food, then he might take and not feel sick also. Even though if you feed him something non-veg chicken or like anything, but you need to convince him according to his belief that this is not an that non-vegetarian food. But he that do you understand what I mean to say?
Yeah,
Yeah, so if somebody feels that they've been affected by black magic, then you want to find a stronger black magic to give to them to help them be safe.
They need to be safe, feel safe.
you should be able to provide the something that superhuman his belief system. It should be something
Exactly.
stronger than his belief system.
Okay. Sarang Joshi,
Yes, sir.
आणखी काय प्रश्न?
नाही sir.
Okay.
It's all just the principle of similars. So if somebody is affected with some kind of spiritual ailment that they think they acquired, then you want to find something similar
Similar.
to counteract it that is a little bit stronger. So if
Yeah,
they've
it's
had an
stronger.
experience that has been like nightmares, then you could, let's say, go to a pundit and say, what would you give to protect somebody from these nightmares? What would you do? And then you could have the person do that. And then you could say, now you're protected. Everything's going to be okay. If somebody thinks that having red in the north, southwest of their house is bad, but they move into a house that has red in the southwest corner, you tell them, go get the right color paint. That'll fix it.
Yeah.
Because people
Okay.
can just get sick from their own beliefs and thoughts. And Hanuman's expressing to us that this is just another version of the law of similars.
Okay. Any other questions?
I want to ask one question, ma'am.
Go ahead, please.
Madam, will you please explain aphorism 248?
Oh, you're the aphorism.
1 minute. Tikwa, just wind up this aphorism 17 session, stop recording, and then you can end.
Wow, Sanjay, think that I'd think of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So thank you for joining us today. And, this will be posted on the YouTube. And I know that it seems like a real stretch of the imagination to have this aphorism put in here because, people who are taught science and, modern medicine, this doesn't seem to have a place. This seems to be like, ooh, out there, right? But Hanuman's saying, no, use whatever tools you need to help your patient. Okay. So it's just another example of the law of similars. So thank you everyone for joining us today.